Okay, last thing with vessels is to teach you guys about fetal circulation, which is really cool, but it's not very easy. So if you have questions about it, we can definitely talk about it in class. Fetal circulation differs from adults. I discussed this with you guys in class briefly, because the reason it differs is because the lungs in a fetus are not doing gas exchange with the air, of course. So instead of needing a different kind of blood than all of the other organs, they pretty much need the same kind of blood as all of the other organs. So fetal circulation is different from an adult because the lungs and the kidneys and the digestive tract too, for that matter, are mostly non-functional, or at least they're not uniquely functional. They are growing, of course, and they do need blood, but they really need systemic blood. They don't need pulmonary blood. The fetus and the mother exchange nutrients through this organ called the placenta. And the placenta develops on the inner surface of the mother's uterus at the site of implantation. And it's a weird structure. What it is a chunk of tissue that basically has fetal capillaries when they develop right next to maternal capillaries. And the important thing is the fetal and maternal capillaries are separate, but they're intertwined. They have to be separate because the maternal and fetal blood is not necessarily the same type. They are not the same organism. They have to be separate because they're two different organisms, and you'll launch an immune system response to an organism that is not you. But they also have to be really close to one another because what has to happen is the maternal blood has to supply all of the oxygen and all of the nutrients, right? But the fetus needs to be close enough, the capillaries need to be close enough for those nutrients and oxygens to move into the fetal capillaries. And then the waste products and carbon dioxide have to move out of the fetal capillaries into maternal capillaries. So, the placenta is embedded in the wall of the mother's uterus. So in this picture, all of this would be inside the mother's uterus. It is ultimately supplied by maternal uterine arteries, which are a branch of the internal iliac arteries. So she's always supplying blood to her uterus. There's a branch, it's called the uterine arteries, coming from the internal iliac arteries. And the placenta has maternal capillaries and then fetal capillaries, but they're not connected, okay? The placenta is actually connected to the fetus via the umbilical cord, which goes through the belly button, the umbilicus, not shown, not very cute right here, but it probably would be cute on a little newborn, the umbilicus, which is how it's attached. Normally, there shouldn't be any appreciable mixing of fetal and maternal blood. The exchange occurs by diffusion because there's such thin capillaries and so close together. So the wastes go from the fetus to the mother, and the nutrients and oxygen go from the mother to the fetus. Okay, so the idea is that the maternal circulation delivers blood to all of maternal organs, including the uterus, and then it will be delivered to the placenta. And then the fetal heart is going to take that blood, the nutrients and oxygen from that blood, and it's going to deliver it back via this red vessel called the umbilical vein. It's going to deliver it into fetal circulation. Now the fetal blood stays in the fetus and the maternal blood stays in the mother. But this is the umbilical vein. It's going to dump into the inferior vena cava just behind the liver. And I'll map this out for you in just a second. And then with that blood that was just had nutrients and oxygen delivered, then the fetal heart is actually going to pump the blood all over the fetal circulation. So the blood gets moves from the fetus, gets pumped all over circulation, and then ultimately it will get pumped back to the placenta through two umbilical arteries, which are branches of the fetal internal iliac arteries. And it's going to be relatively low oxygen and lots of waste. So we're going to go through it, and then we'll go through it again in words. Actually, let's make it big. All right. Ready? Okay. You, if you are like anyone else, you're going to have to go through this more than once because it doesn't stick very quickly. Okay. So this is all inside the uterus. The placenta is inside the uterus. The fetus is inside the uterus. So the first thing that has just happened is the mother has just delivered high oxygen blood to her uterus. And then the oxygen, we're kind of following the oxygen at the same time as we follow the blood. The oxygen is going to move from maternal capillaries, which would be maybe out here, to fetal capillaries. The oxygen is moving in. And then the oxygen is going to move up this red vessel, which is called the umbilical vein. Why is it a vein? Because it's going back toward the fetal heart. The umbilical vein is going to dump into the inferior vena cava. The inferior vena cava is going to dump where it always does, which is the right atrium. And then the right atrium is going to deliver blood to the right ventricle. But in addition, some of that blood is going to be able to move from the right atrium to the left atrium via when it's open, it's called the foramen ovale, and it allows for the blood to mix between the two sides of the heart. So some of it will go from here to here. Some of it will go from here to here. Okay. And then the ventricles are going to pump. They are going to push blood into the pulmonary trunk and the aorta. And then the blood is going to mix one more time right here. This is a little vessel that is open during fetal circulation. When it's open, it's called the Ductus Arteriosus. Okay. And it allows for blood to mix in the aortic arch and the pulmonary trunk so that not a disproportional amount of this blood actually ends up going to the lungs. It still gets blood because they're growing. And then, so you're going to pump blood into the fetal aorta. And then after it goes into the fetal aorta, it is going to go and deliver blood to all the places that an aorta does. Intercostal muscles, and then it's going to go down and deliver blood, to the kidneys and to all of those other places. And then at the end, it is going to go down and it's going to split, of course, like it always does. It's going to split into the left and right common iliac arteries. Going to give blood to the legs, of course, but also give blood to the internal iliac arteries, and then the internal iliac arteries are going to split and send that blood back through the umbilical veins back to the placenta so that you can dump off wastes and carbon dioxide. Okay, so let's go through this one more time. Okay, mom just sent oxygen to all of her systemic organs, including her uterus. Oxygen is going to be picked up from the placenta and moved through the umbilical vein, through the belly button. Okay. Umbilical vein will dump into the inferior vena cava behind the liver. Then you are going to dump that blood from the inferior vena cava into the right atrium. Some of it's going to move through the foramen ovale. Some of it is going to go down into the right ventricle. Regardless, the blood in both ventricles is going to move up through the pulmonary trunk and the aorta. It's going to mix one more time in the ductus arteriosus. And then it's going to get pumped to all of the fetal systemic organs. As it gets pumped to all of the fetal systemic organs, it's going to go common iliac artery, internal iliac artery, and then umbilical arteries. Common iliac, internal iliac, umbilical arteries. And then it will go back through the umbilical arteries back to the placenta. Okay, so let's go through this in words and put some stuff together and figure out where these structures go. Okay, so the idea is really that maternal circulation delivers blood with oxygen and nutrients to the uterus and the placenta, and then it goes from the placenta back into circulation, the oxygen and nutrients go into fetal circulation, And then the fetal heart actually pumps fetal blood all over the little fetal body, including to all of these organs. And then you are ultimately going to pump the blood back to the placenta so that you can dump off the oxygen in the waste. So the blood from the fetus to the placenta is going to go out through 2 umbilical arteries. The blood from the placenta back to the fetus goes through an umbilical vein, 1 umbilical vein. So only the umbilical vein is fully oxygenated, because after that it gets mixed really quickly. But the fetus accommodates for that by having a really, really fast heart rate. So what happens at birth? What happens at birth is a few things. After the fetus is delivered, of course, the umbilical cord is still going to be attached to the little fetal belly button. And so the fetus, a typical vaginal delivery, the fetus is going to be out, the umbilicus is still going to be attached, and it's still going to be attached to the placenta. If the placenta didn't come out with the fetus, then the placenta actually has to be delivered as well. You have to get every little piece of it off, otherwise there's the potential for sepsis in the mother. When the placenta is delivered, it's called afterbirth. At some point right after delivery, the umbilical cord, including the arteries and the veins, will be cut and clamped. And after that, the fetus's circulation is doing fetal stuff, and the maternal circulation is separate. And then the foramen ovale right here usually closes when the fetal lungs inflate and start functioning, usually slams shut. And then it will stay shut and will start to heal. And then this guy, which is the Ductus Arteriosus, usually takes a couple of days to close. And when it closes, the fetal oxygen content will go up to about 100%. So the Ductus Arteriosus becomes the Ligamentum arteriosum, which is still present in an adult heart. The foramen ovale becomes the fossa ovalis. The umbilical arteries are actually still left behind as ligaments, and the umbilical vein ends up being the round ligament of the liver. So that is fetal circulation. Let's see if I have a video of fetal circulation for you too. I'm not sure if I do. Nope. If I do, I'll put it at the end here.